And there we are. Make sure that it took. There we go. All right. See if anybody shows up. I didn't see a notification. Wonder if it doesn't send a notification if you do that. That's weird.
Is this the chat down here at the bottom?
Yes, it will show the live chat there. Trying to double check. If there's a notification. Oh, there's somebody. Good morning.
Oh,
did you get a notification? That's what I'm checking right now. Yep, mine went out. Okay.
Good morning, Eminem.
She didn't stay up nearly as late as the rest of us did.
I saw she went to bed at 10.
She said, happy anniversary.
Thank you.
Yes, happy anniversary to Maria and her hubby.
I see how that goes a little, the chat's a little like right behind. You must see it before I do.
I have YouTube running, so I see the chat on YouTube. It has a delay going to Streamlab. Looks like we're getting a couple people in now. So, I pulled a little bit of an article here from way back when, to kind of summarize. That I will read and then we can discuss it. Okay. That sounds good to you?
Yes, that's good.
Okay, so the title of this was Florida Girl 9 was strangled, stuffed in suitcase during alleged sexual assault. Nearly 3 months after a third-grade girl's naked body was found floating in a river, Florida police claim they have pinned down her killer. Felicia Williams, 9, was raped, strangled, and stuffed in a suitcase by Granville Ritchie, 35, Temple Terrace Police Chief Kenneth Albano announced at a Friday news conference. Now, this was back in 2014. They charged him with first-degree murder, capital sexual battery, and aggravated child abuse. The little girl's family and friends who had assembled at the news conference greeted the announcement of the pending charges back then with cheers, but the celebration turned into tears as they went on to describe the last hours of Williams's life. Williams was picked up from her Tampa home by family friend Ebony Wiley on May 16th. Now, this was in 2014. She was taken to a Temple Terrace apartment where Wiley reportedly left the little girl alone with Ritchie for a little more than an hour. That was all the time it took for Ritchie to commit a crime of opportunity, Albano said. When Wiley returned, the man was reportedly shirtless and sweating. Both Wiley and Ritchie gave various accounts of the incident to police. Ritchie told cops that he had driven off to another town that day, but investigators used soil found in Ritchie's car to link him to the spot where Williams's body was found. Cell phone data suggests he spent a prolonged period of time in that area during the night. The investigation showed that Williams suffered blunt force trauma to the head during the attack. The girl's body was discovered near the Courtnell Campbell Causeway on May 17th, 2014. Ritchie, at that point, had been in police custody since May 21st, first on unrelated drug charges. Wiley pleaded not guilty to giving the cops false information during their search for Williams in May of 2014. Albano said it was very emotional time for the family and for the local cops who were involved in the search. You can't help but have a heart for this family. So that, in a nutshell, is how the case started. And we now know that after watching the trial, that they found him guilty of all the charges and sentenced him to death.
Sad, sad story.
Very sad story. So, what was your take on the trial?
Oh, it was a brutal one to go through. That's for sure. Of all the ones we listened to, that one was really, really brutal.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess I always was wanting to know why. Why? I mean, okay, I understand that some people have a sickness, but did he target this girl? Did he see her ahead of time and somehow arrange this opportunity to be alone with her so that he could do this to her? I mean, she was only gone for like an hour, and in that split second, did he just pounce as soon as she left the apartment? I don't get it.
Well, it seemed that it wasn't planned that the child would be there with Ebony and him, right? So, I wondered if it was more of when she said she had to bring the child with her. When Ebony said she was going to have to bring the child with her to their meetup, if when he saw her that just triggered this reaction that he wanted to do this, or what. Although they did say that drugs were involved.
Yeah.
So that's also, you don't people react differently to drugs. So some people get more violent, some you you they didn't really say what he was on. She said that she had taken
Oh wow. Well,
that started with an M, didn't it?
oh gosh,
I
I
can't
don't
remember what
know.
it was.
It wasn't ecstasy. It was
No, it was like a synthetic type of that, I think. I think it started with an M, whatever they called it. And she was like, because they talked about she talked about, like, after she found out that the hi Kaylee Roberts, she talked about on the stand, when she would take that not ecstasy, because she had a different reaction with ecstasy, but when she took that particular drug, she it caused her,
Molly.
like, to have
Molly.
this spirit, Molly, that's right, the spiritual kind of
Yeah, I don't get all that.
effect on her. Because remember when they when she came back, and Granville, said he had sent the girl wanted to go to the store to get a soda, so he gave her money, let her go to the store, and then they couldn't find her, like, she went into a closet to pray.
Right. Right.
Which was to me, was, not that praying was an odd behavior, but going into a closet to pray when you have a missing child seems a very odd behavior, instead of, like, frantically running around calling people, trying to get everybody you can to look for the kid.
Right. Right. Then apparently they engaged in fun times afterwards too,
They had
which
relations, right?
yeah, which is just okay. They say he sexually did something to her and stuff, and then he was able to to do that again with her. I mean, this is like, what is this man? I mean, unless these drugs that he was taking had superly sexualized him, and I don't know, but
Except
just
we don't know what he was on because I didn't see that come out at all in court. And even though, we got to see some of the like things that didn't get let in, by watching it externally, unlike the jurors, because we got to see a lot of there was a lot of arguments from the lawyers on both sides about certain things.
right.
And um, what I um, what I wondered is, one, what was he really on, and why I don't understand why that never came out. I mean, that could have been a defense thing, but they never did. Neither side actually came out and said anything about what he was on at the time. She admitted, um, Ebony, she admitted to being, taking that Molly, but he had actually sent Ebony out to go get marijuana.
I know. Talk about a major concoction there of
Right,
mixture
right.
of drugs and
And
stuff.
and then, um, like, when you think about that though, so if she was only gone for an hour, in an hour, he raped and brutally killed that poor little girl, and then had to do something with her body at that point because he didn't even have his car, which really
Right,
wasn't his car. We found out he had borrowed that car from his other girlfriend or from his real girlfriend. Um, so I wondered, what did he do with her? Uh, because Ebony came back, they had relations. Where was the little girl at the time? Because obviously after um, he went back after, they couldn't find her and they looked and they talked to the police. Like he had to go back and take her down and dump her in the water.
right.
So to me, that was very unclear as to
When that exactly happened, right?
right.
Because that wasn't enough time to, by the time she came back to do all that.
Well, he didn't even have a vehicle to do that with because she had taken his vehicle. And then there was another thing that kind of puzzled me too. Not that to me it had any bearings on the outcome of the case. Um, Ebony had said that when she came back, after she went to her grandfather and got the marijuana, she came back, um, and because it was a gated area, so you had to have somebody ring you in or you had to have the credentials to be able to get in.
Hmm.
And she couldn't get in, remember? And then she said that some little boy was, I don't know, riding his bike or whatever and let her in. But then they had the security company, they had the guy from the security company who handles the gate and the access and everything. Um, Asked him about how that all works and would the little boy, is it like a keypad thing? No, it's not a keypad thing. It's like a swipe card thing. um, and so you either have to be rung in from the people in the apartment or you have to have a card, and that, like, everybody doesn't have a card, so that little boy wouldn't have had a card. So that kind of puzzled me too. um, so I wonder if that affected actually that 1 hour timeline. Maybe she's saying, I mean, maybe she got back to the complex an hour after, but how long did it take her to get in?
Yeah, and the evidence was found in that car, though, right? That was the evidence was found in that
The
vehicle.
evidence of the dumping, I mean, the
Hmm.
dumping site was right. So they had the soil samples, they had the scratches on the vehicle, which I thought an interesting point that they made was that, uh, first, investigator who showed up, she had a brand new police car, and it got all scraped up driving down through those mangroves to get to the scene where they found the body. And so it correlated with the scratches that was on his Lexus. Well, it
Mhm.
really wasn't his Lexus, but the
Right.
Lexus that he borrowed. Um, I thought that was kind of interesting because the defense made this huge, um, I thought, dramatic thing about the mangroves. Well, there's not white mangroves there, and or whatever color mangroves. Now, I don't know anything about the different colors of the mangroves, but they had a scientist in there saying that, yeah, they're, the way that they're found, and I don't understand why they made that such a big deal. I mean, the other evidence had nothing to do with the mangroves.
Distraction.
And right, and what color they were, because it didn't matter what color they were. Like, there were still scratches on the vehicle in the exact same spot that the police cruiser had scratches. But they found the soil inside the vehicle that matched the area there. I thought that
Right. This
the
all. Go ahead.
I thought that the defense did not. I don't think that I didn't like the defense anyway, but I don't
No.
think they did a very good job at what they were nitpicking about. They were nitpicking about where the body went in and those mangroves and which color of mangroves it was that was growing in the area where they found her. And that really, to me, had no relevance to whether or not he did it or even the evidence of whether or not he did it. I mean, they should have tried to, I think, well, there wasn't enough time for him to do this. And when was he, like, why didn't they question how in the world did he go and dump the body when, all this stuff happened? And where did he put the body? When, when Ebony came back to the apartment.
Exactly. This all presupposes that Ebony, that lied the first time, tell the truth the second time.
That's true.
I think that the narrative could have gone a different way, that when she got back, she, all that other stuff that she was talking about may not have happened. What if she actually helped him in some way?
I thought about that. And I can't imagine that she helped him commit the crime. Okay, I
No,
could,
no,
right.
cleaned it
I,
up.
I I could see there could be a possibility that um she would have been persuaded by him to help him deal with
The
deal
after.
with right,
Mhm.
the aftermath. However, when you think about how close she supposedly was to that child, um, why would you do that? But then again, I ask myself, why would she leave this poor girl with a complete? I mean, let's face it, Ebony only knew him for like 3 days, I think they said.
Right.
Why would she leave this 9-year-old girl with this really complete stranger?
Hmm.
Um, Even just for an hour, because so much can happen in an hour. And so that didn't make sense to me either. So I did have that thought. And I also wondered why she was not charged with child endangerment.
Exactly. I think she should have been. Absolutely. Absolutely. She literally set that child up to be raped, killed, whatever. I mean, you're leaving that child, when you had that child with you, you're responsible for that child. And she just left him with a complete stranger like that. And I can see how the way he was, that he would be able to persuade her when she got back to say, well, you're going to get in trouble too. If you don't help me, you're going to get in trouble for leaving her here and stuff. And I could see where she would have been scared enough to help him. Maybe she got back and saw the aftermath and helped him. That would have arranged for all the time that he needed to go and dump the body and all that too. I,
Right.
I just I have a hard time believing that okay, she went into the closet and prayed, and then they engaged in sexual intercourse, which I just have a hard time. I'm like, my gosh, this guy has a lot of energy. You know what I'm saying? To do that, and then do that with her and stuff instead of going out looking for the child. Oh well, let's I that doesn't register in my brain. And she seems like the kind of person, and especially if she was high on Molly and whatnots, to she just doesn't seem like a very responsible person to
Right.
you know I
Well, see, to
I
me, when I first heard about the praying in the closet, I mean, now first of all, um, when you listened to her when she got on the stand, Ebony, when she got on the stand, um, it to me it was pretty apparent that her judgment was not the best. Um, just the way that she was explaining things and her perspective, I thought, wow, like I felt like she did not have a clue to think about this guy could have been a danger to her or the child, considering she didn't even know this guy. But the fact that when she was talking about how when she takes this Molly stuff, it gives her like a spiritual experience, and the fact that she felt the need to go in the closet and pray, to me, I felt like that indicated some sort of guilt on her part about something.
Mhm. Absolutely. Absolutely. And he's the one that came up with the story. Now, don't tell him that you left her with a guy again, because you're the one that's going to get in trouble. Make sure you tell him that you left him, with my mother, and don't say that you left him because otherwise you're going to get in trouble. So I could see him turning it all around and blaming her for the whole thing. Well, you're the one that left her here with me and stuff, and so now you got to help me. Let's clean up the mess. How many times have we seen it in other cases where the man persuades the woman to help him clean things up and stuff, and even vice versa sometimes. I mean, the spouse and the husband, and let's, help me clean this up and stuff, or you're going to get in trouble too. You know about it now, so you're going to get in trouble too.
Right.
So, I could see him. He seems like that kind of, I don't know, that whatever. And when they started talking about his background and some of the stuff, we couldn't understand what they were saying, but about the Dons and the what was it? Oh, the ballers.
Well, right. So then he gets found guilty. Actually, the court case was really hard to hear, and I think the hardest part for me to hear um, was, when the doctor got on and he was describing um, the details of the injuries. And it's bad enough to think about a poor little girl being raped, but the fact that her death was so brutal. Like, she had a huge head injury.
Right.
And and so that was all very difficult to hear. But then so you get through the case, and of course both of us were like, well, he's definitely guilty. There was so much evidence. There was so much. The defense, um they kind of, to me, didn't have a leg to stand on top of the fact that I didn't feel um that they argued the right points to try to get any sympathy from the jury or to get them to question anything. They didn't offer another scenario. Um, they didn't try to say there's no possible way he could have done this because, he was here or this or that or the timeline, like they did none of that. So then you get the guilty verdict, and then you go through the penalty phase, right? Where they're deciding whether or not they have to decide whether or not they're going to give him life or death. And this part was actually pretty long. The the testimony they had and all of that was really long, and they went into his background, and the defense was trying to show how he had this really rough childhood. He was, you know, supposedly mentally and physically abused. He had suffered some previous injuries, like there was a couple of car accidents, um, and some what falls or something, sports injuries that they tried to, say, oh, this kind of played into his um, thought processes. I'm sorry. This is a 9-year-old girl. Like, a 9-year-old girl cannot put up a struggle against a large grown man. I just there's no possible way. To me, there's no excuse for, I don't care what happened in your childhood. I don't care how much you hate women. None of those things to me excuses the fact that this was a helpless 9-year-old child.
Right. Yeah, I saw them more as more distraction. That I mean, what does any of that have to do with the fact of what happened and what he did? And who cares how many car accidents and whatever he had? Cry me a river. We've all had accidents and fallen down and hit our heads, and I mean, obviously he was able to function in society, but I mean, none of that has anything to do with the fact that he saw a child and he did that to her. I i i don't get it. If he hated women, okay, well, okay, take it out on the women and stuff,
Right.
but apparently he liked women because he had them in several
And
different places.
all over the world.
He was a
Well,
player,
I
let's
mean,
put it that
the
way.
the girlfriend who let him borrow the car, like, they were in a long-term relationship. They were gonna get married, so he
Okay.
had her, right? So then he's got all these other girls in different areas that he's, messing around with. And Ebony was one of the people he was messing around with. It wasn't really his girlfriend.
Right. Right. Yeah, he just saw her walking down the street and then stopped and said, "Oh, I thought you were younger than you were," and stuff, which that was weird
That
comment.
was very creepy. Um, when that information came out, that first of all, I mean, I don't know who drives down the street and sees somebody, and I mean, because you don't know, they might be armed, they might be crazy, they might be a lunatic. Who does that?
I don't know. I know the neighborhood was a little different. They put people on there to let us know just how bad the neighborhood was, which again, people live in bad neighborhoods and stuff
Well,
and still don't
right.
have that.
Just because you live in a bad neighborhood doesn't mean you have to be a violent criminal. I mean,
And look at all the great things he's done, and I'm thinking, what does that have to do with anything?
well,
Great.
when you brought up the whole Dom thing, and so where he grew up, his dad was the leader of their little, I don't remember what they call them there. I don't remember what they call them there. They're like ghettos here, but um, so because his family was poor, they didn't have any money, but his dad was like the leader of that area, and so the big rich politicians would give these leaders money to hand out to the people to buy votes. So his dad um, was, given money to hand out to people to buy votes, and by the fact that he was his son, that put him at that status in their little community there. Because
Right.
when they were talking to those people and they were all like, "Oh, he was always so generous to the community." He was generous to the community, but not with his own stuff because he didn't have stuff. He was generous with this politician's money buying votes.
Hmm.
So I do think that probably growing up in a situation like that, he probably felt very powerful on
Right.
in one aspect, and then on the other, probably, had the grandiose idea that he wanted to be that rich politician handing out money,
Hmm.
and maybe the reason why he has all these girls, and maybe in effect the reason why he attacked this poor girl was all about dominance for him, and
Oh, absolutely.
feeling important and powerful and in charge.
Yeah, absolutely. I wish with these cases, and I know it's not going to happen because we have our laws and whatnots, that, okay, once we get to it, okay, you are found guilty. Now you have to get on that stand and tell us now. What's the guarantee that they're actually going to tell us the truth? Tell us
Right.
exactly what happened. I'd love to know the exactly what happened, because we have to just speculate, and of course, there's a lot of stuff that I'm sure the jurors saw that we didn't see. That they may probably that's how they probably made their decision and stuff. But to know exactly what happened, you spill your guts. Tell us
I am
exactly
more
what.
curious. I mean, I like to study people and their behaviors,
Right?
and
Why?
right.
Why?
What was the motive here? Because usually, I mean, we had a case here where we had that Sean Hornback and that and Ben.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
So, Sean had been taken. They couldn't find him. They found him after the guy went to go snatch another kid because he was going to kill that one because he had gotten too old. And he snatched another child. Um, there was a history there of this kind of behavior, though.
Mm-hmm.
This guy, one of the things that the defense tried to put out there was, well, he's been a model citizen, and he has, he's never been in trouble with the law, I mean, drug charges, but like, he's never been a violent criminal. And um although, it's kind of a shame we go, it's just been drug charges, because I mean, it's still something illegal and it's still breaking the law. And yet, we kind of brush that off like, oh, that's pretty commonplace these days. um but like, what started this? It certainly had nothing to do with being able to have sex, because he had women everywhere that were willing to give it to him. So it certainly had nothing to do with that. Did he all of a sudden become a pedophile? I mean, did he? That's the part that I don't understand.
Yeah, that's what messes me up too, because usually, okay, you hear about these players that have girls everywhere and stuff. They don't they don't they're not usually pedophiles. They're usually, okay, they're players. They like girls. Okay, I get that, but that I don't know. Did the little girl, I'm not saying uh, by all means, I'm not saying it's her fault at all. Did she, I don't know, did she do something or say something that triggered it? Did he get mad at her? Did it start out as him getting angry at her for something, and then it turned into, then it turned into that? I don't know. I don't know if it was, rage turned into that, or I don't know. I don't
Well,
we see we'll never know what exactly happened there.
there had to be rage there, because for some reason, because it was so violent.
Right.
I mean,
Something
why
triggered it.
why did she have to have such a huge head injury, when, I mean, most rapists strangle their victim. I mean, that's how they subdue them anyway, you know?
Right.
So why was it necessary? Considering this was a much smaller person and a child, there would have been no need to use a weapon, or, beat the person to death or anything. Um, so I don't understand why it. Obviously, there's a reason why it was so violent.
Obviously she fought back. That's for sure,
Oh,
but
oh, right, she did. They said she fought back, ferociously. But, unfortunately, she still was a 9-year-old girl who, was up against this huge grown man.
right. So it's almost like something triggered that to happen. But in that short period of time, I mean, as soon as Ebony left, something happened and it triggered him. Because it doesn't make any sense to me.
I mean, unless he was already mad about something before they got to the apartment, and then maybe that's where he, kind of I mean, it could be the reason. I mean, he could have had something planned in his head by the time they got to the apartment, and that was the reason why he sent her out for marijuana, because that could have been a ploy. That didn't necessarily mean that that was a necessity, that, like, they had to have
Oh, sure.
marijuana.
Absolutely. I think he got rid of her on purpose. That for sure
Right.
was it. But when did it start? Was it as soon as he picked her up, as soon as she said, "Oh, I have this kid," and because she was saying in the car she's hungry, and he's like, "Oh well, my mom's got food at the house," and she's like, "Well, she's not gonna eat that food, let's go get her some food," because he didn't want to go get
Right.
her food. He wanted to go straight back to the house. So was he already thinking about it when she said something about the kid? I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah, I mean, um yeah, I don't know, and it was weird because what if she hadn't been with Ebony that day? Would it have ever happened? Um, I mean, was this something that was gonna happen with him regardless? I mean, w there didn't seem to be any kind of history with him of behavior that would lead you to believe that this was something he would do.
No. Unless, of course, he had been seeing her already, because she had been taking the girls out, right? She took her out quite a bit. And
Right.
he already had
He could have
seen
been
her.
watching them, like, walking around
Yeah,
and stuff, because they did walk everywhere, so it is possible.
that he targeted her.
It is very possible he could have done that.
That he targeted her and was waiting for the right opportunity. And maybe it wouldn't have been just a little girl. Maybe the one day when they were walking, and she was walking with the other daughter. She was a little bit older, but I mean, I don't know what was going through his sick mind, but he could very well have targeted her.
True.
And then because he thought he owned the whole place there, that he could do whatever he wanted. It's very possible. And then maybe even when he was targeting her, maybe he thought she was maybe she thought he thought because he remember when he said he stopped her, that he said, "Oh, I thought you were younger." Maybe he thought that even Ebony was, you know,
Right.
a teenager or something, and so he was watching them for a while, and then this was his perfect opportunity when she said, "Oh, I've got this kid I'm gonna bring over." She's like, "Ooh, perfect opportunity. Now let me get rid of her so I can, And then I still don't think he had enough time though to dispose of the body when she was gone. That
No, he had to put the child somewhere until, but see, that's just it. Like, I didn't quite get how that whole timeline really played out, because Ebony says she was gone for an hour. She comes back. She has problems getting in, so that's probably a little bit extra time. She gets back and he is sweating and out of breath. So he's been scampering, to do something, right?
Mhm.
So obviously he had to put the child somewhere, but yet
Perhaps in the
then
closet, the closet where
maybe
she went to pray.
anything is possible, I guess, because it's yeah, there's not really a lot of discussion about, like, that they ran through the house looking for her. There was the assumption that she went to the store and never made it back, so she went to the store to look, and then um uh came back, and uh and then she was like, well, we need to call the police. So so he had to have put the child somewhere close. um and then the police comes and everything, and then at what point, I guess, after all of the questioning and all of that, then he has to go back, and he has to, you know kind of try to remove himself from the situation by, taking the body somewhere else.
Right. It would have to been after he dropped off Ebony, because he had to drop her off and stuff. But she was there for so long afterwards when the child was missing. So
But I never got the impression that they looked around the apartment.
right. So she had to been in there somewhere
Yes,
and had
because I can't imagine he would have taken her, like, outside and put her in some bushes. I mean, there's too much opportunity that somebody else would you know, and then you'd be in a kind of mess. So he would have had to. I thought he would have had to hide her somewhere in the apartment.
Yeah. Did they ever say they put her on a lie detector test? No, I don't think they did.
I never heard anything about a lie detector test.
Because who's to say she even was telling the truth? She lied the first time. Liars usually lie again.
Right,
Um, who's to say that she was even telling the truth in the second time and stuff?
right.
'Cause I just that whole narrative where she prayed and then and then they 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 looked a little bit and then they decide to have sex because that was going to solve everything and you know it just doesn't make any sense. None of it does. Now what makes more sense is, oh, here's the body, okay, let's go clean this mess up and stuff, and you're going to help me and stuff, and then this is the story you're going to tell everybody, by the way, and stuff, and then okay, we cleaned up, now I'm going to take you home. Make sure you tell everybody you didn't leave them because they're going to blame you for all this. Because I'm a big shot here.
Right.
You know, I would love to have put her to a lie detector, and she should have had some kind of penalty too. Because if I
Well,
was the
yeah,
mother, I
I
would
am
sue
still
her.
really surprised that she um did not uh that she wasn't charged at least with, child endangerment. I would have thought for sure that that would have been something they would have gone after her for, or that the family of the child would have pushed for.
Absolutely, as a mother, I would, her is the first person that I would try and strangle. You know what I'm saying? She'd be the first person I'd be mad at because what are you thinking? I left her with you. I didn't tell you to leave her with this strange man. What were you thinking? But then again, did the mother not know that this lady did drugs and was not stable? You
Well,
know,
I got the impression. Hi, Chrissy G. Um, I got the impression. Um, so I just saw another message. Let's see. Eminem Mama says, "Did she make a deal with the police? Maybe." Well, the thing is that they never said anything about that, and usually, that comes out either in the news stories or um, the defense will bring that up because that is a technique that the defense will use to try to discredit the um, the witness, because whenever you have experts on the stand, they're always going, oh, well, they're paid hourly and they're making $500 an hour or $250 an hour or whatever. Like that's some Casbat. No, this is the Granville Ritchie case. um, but anyway, the mother, I got the impression from the mother when she was on the stand testifying. Um, I have no doubt she loved that little girl, but I feel like she was overwhelmed and there wasn't a lot of supervision going on because she had, a bunch of children, which she
right? And
had like six. There was five or
right.
six, right? And so she had to work a lot. She had some,
I think she
I
was a
think,
single mom too. I thought.
right. So she was
Mm.
taking care of all these kids on her own.
Right. So then this neighbor or decides she's going to watch over the kids, but especially the little one and
Right.
stuff. And he was calling her the godmother. That was a little weird too, because she was saying she was the godmother, but nobody else was calling her the godmother. But
Well, the
she's
mother
she
even said she was not her godmother.
right.
Actually,
So
the
anyway,
mother said she didn't know she was calling herself the child's godmother.
which was weird in itself too. It's like,
Right.
so I'm taking the mother was working a lot and she was just taking her. And she thought in her head that she was. But again, Ebony's not the
Sharpest tool in the
sharpest
drawer.
tool in the shed. Yeah,
Yeah. No.
she
And,
plus
and you could
high
tell that when she
high.
got on the stand.
Yeah, she. Oh, I just kept thinking, you stupid, stupid girl. Um, I could see her easily being manipulated, just especially
Right.
she was high at the time too and stuff. Plus, I could see her being manipulated by that guy. He just sat there real quiet in the corner, all meek and poor little me and stuff. But uh, he was probably a very very scary man and stuff. I don't care what all the good things they said he did and whatnots and of course all his brain damage and all
Well, that
those
was just it. They claimed that brain damage, and then they had a doctor up there that had looked at all the few records that they did have. He didn't have any brain damage.
right. I love that. He just got up there and said, normal, normal, normal. Everything looks normal.
Right.
So, yeah. Uh, yeah, no, people with severe brain damage. Honestly, those that are actually your people that actually do have mental problems and stuff are not the ones going around doing these terrible, terrible crimes. That's why I love it when they get up there and say, oh, well, they have mental illness. I beg to differ. Because the people with mental illness don't usually go around. The people with the real mental illness don't usually around doing this stuff. It's the people that know what they're doing and do it anyway, know it's wrong, and go ahead and do it anyway to gratify their own pleasures. Are the ones doing this stuff.
Well, right. The whole mental issue usually comes into play when when they get their defense lawyer and they're like, okay, well, let's get some doctors. Because if you notice, a lot of times there's no history of them seeing any kind of therapist or psychiatrist or psychologist or anything for any kind of issue up until after the fact that they've committed this horrific crime.
Right.
I mean, nobody ever claimed that he had head injuries until after he murdered this child, and they couldn't there was no evidence that he had any brain injuries or mental illness even.
Right. Ask his many girlfriends. Did he have mental problems? No. I and then the one girlfriend still's his girlfriend and stuff. How messed up is that?
Right.
That she's still standing by him after all this and stuff. It shows you how easily he can manipulate women.
Right.
That
Well,
even
evidently he's very good at manipulating and lying and getting what he wants. I mean, he's definitely shown that he can do all of those things.
right. So I really think that there's a big chunk of the story that is not the truth, obviously, and that's where that's where everything happened at was that interim when she got back there, got finally in there and stuff, and he was shirtless and stuff because it just happened. He
Right.
had a struggle. That little girl, she was only 9, but she put up a fight. She was a bigger 9-year-old and stuff, and so she probably had a lot of strength, and she let him have it. And I hope she did too. So, and then she came into right in the right tail end of it, if not in the middle of it, and helped clean it all up. And then here's your story, and this is what you say.
Right.
You know, otherwise you're going to go to jail, or maybe even worse. Maybe he threatened her.
That's
You know,
also a possibility. um I think um one of the best parts of the trial was after because I was very aggravated with the way that the defense was pretty much crying, poor me for him. Oh, I've had these head injuries. Oh, not that they never came out and said this is what caused him to do this. They just, he deserves to live because he's not going to do this again. Um, he doesn't have any history of this, and he's had these head injuries that they didn't that they didn't even prove existed. um but the jury, when the verdict for whether or not they were going to sentence him to life or death came back, and they looked at, did the prosecution prove these three aggravating factors? yes, yes, yes. Okay, so then you go to the defense, and it only took, it would only take one juror to vote that the mitigating factors outweigh the aggravating factors so that he would get life. They all had to agree to put him to death for that to happen. And they said there were, like, I think they said 2 jurors that said that the defense did prove some mitigating factors, but the decision was that the aggravating factors outweighed any mitigating factors, and they all voted that he deserved to be put to death.
Right. Right. Absolutely.
Which, I'm sorry. We might be having a slightly different discussion had this been an adult. The trial might have been a little different. The defense might have been a little different had this been an adult. This was a 9-year-old child.
Right. This was all about control. I don't, I don't understand. Well, obviously, because I'm not a pedophile, but I don't understand the attraction thing,
Right.
especially since he had all these other women. But so I'm thinking this is all just about control and maybe anger and whatever he was on. So I'm sorry, this is my clock going off.
That's okay. That's okay.
uh I I don't know. Something happened that triggered the anger, unless whatever he took put him in a rage. And that poor little girl she had no chance.
That sounds like my mom and dad's clock. Did you buy that clock at Sam's?
Yes, this one here
It's
was
the
a gift
same
from my
clock
parents.
they have.
I have two. I have one here in my bedroom, and I have one in my living room. This one plays Beatles music, and the one in the living room plays like classical music and
Yeah,
stuff.
my mom changes, like, because there's different things you can change it to, and she changes hers back and forth.
Yeah, yeah. That I just don't know. I wish we would have been able to actually hear exactly what happened, but who's to say we're ever going to get the truth from him? That he's ever going to say,
No, I don't think he's ever going to admit that he did it. And I mean, I don't know. Maybe he'll have a coming to Jesus moment while he's in prison.
"Oh yeah, they all do when they they go to jail. They all." Was it Ted Bundy? I think said it when I saw a thing on Ted Bundy. He said they either come to Jesus and stuff, or they go the other direction. You always have a coming to Jesus once you go to prison. He was saying so.
Right.
I don't know. I don't know. I think he thought he could do whatever he take whatever he wanted.
Yeah.
Because that's how his family was. Dimension was that's how he was raised and stuff. His dad was big shot. He's a big shot. And who's to say this didn't happen before? I mean, I don't know. They say, well, just because somebody hasn't been convicted of a crime in the past doesn't mean that they haven't actually done
Right.
anything.
Right.
And
You're right.
he was put in jail. We did hear that in the talking in court, but they weren't going to put that in that he had been in jail. So I don't know what that was all about. They didn't want that. They didn't want to put that in there that he had been arrested before and stuff. So who's to say? Who's to say all the different drugs he was on, all the different concoctions that he was on and stuff? Some of these people that doing these drugs nowadays are just way out there.
Right. And it never did come out like what he was taking. Like nobody ever said anything about his drug usage or what he used. I mean, obviously, marijuana, he asked for that, but there had to be more than that involved if he was, given Ebony these other drugs and stuff.
Right. I felt like they focused more on what she was taking and what were you taking and how did it make you feel and stuff. And it's like, okay, well, supposedly she's not the one that did commit the crime, so I don't know why we're focusing on all the stuff that she was taking, Molly, ecstasy, whatever the heck, and stuff. What was he taking? You know, what made him go into this rage and stuff? That see, he seemed like such a calm person, and all of a sudden now he's all, and oh, now they're talking about how he was depressed. He's depressed. He's got depression. I'm sure he does have depression. I
Yeah,
hope he
it
does
and it
have
didn't
depression.
happen until after he was in jail.
Right, right. Yeah. So all these mental illnesses he's having are all because of he's in jail now, locked up.
Mhm.
Which, okay,
Oh,
yeah,
and he's not going, he's not going to commit the crime again, any crime again like that. Well, no, he's in a prison with men. He's not going to find a little girl in prison with him, like, seriously.
no, no. There might be people that are going to be doing it to him, but
Yeah, yeah. There's definitely a lot of control fighting going on in jail, but yeah, I
yeah,
I also I was really, besides the fact with him, I don't know how they didn't charge Ebony with child endangerment. That still boggles my mind.
right. They just got
Because it,
fine.
if the police had made a deal with her and said, if the prosecuting attorney would have said, hey, we promise we won't press any charges to you if you're completely, honest with us about what happened, blah blah blah, and uh, testify against him. I the defense would have brought that up. The defense would have brought that up to further try to make her look like a bad witness for the prosecution, and said, "Well, hey, didn't the prosecution offer you a deal to testify against him?" Blah 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 blah. Because that to me would have been a really smart move on the defense, because she already was a questionable witness because she had lied several times already about what happened.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, no, the defense was not very good at all. He could have he could have had better lawyers and
Yeah.
stuff. So I'm glad he didn't. But
Oh, right, right. I agree with you. I mean, as much as annoying as that one was to listen to, I think he received what he deserved, and I think the jury did a really good job with what they had to work with.
oh yeah, to me it was with all the evidence and stuff. It was just an open and shut case. Um, but yeah, if I was the family and stuff, I'd be going after Ebony next. I would
Right,
sue her. I would, of course, she probably doesn't have too much to to sue her, but um, she, like that other case where the girl went to prison because she set up the environment of that baby to be put in that environment because she knew he was abusive and stuff, and
right,
she allowed him to keep coming back. She kept taking him back, and she knew that he was abusive and stuff in the same way. Now, granted, Ebony can't say that she knew that he was going to do that, but
right,
nobody in their right mind, now granted, she probably wasn't in her right mind, which again, no excuse.
right,
Um, she left him there. She left this little girl that with this guy that she didn't know, but for maybe 2 3 days tops. I mean, what is wrong with this girl? What is wrong with these women? I mean, you met this guy and you're already going to his apartment and stuff, and you have no idea if this guy's going to kill you. Nowadays and stuff, it's insanity to do that. You know, she gave him he pulls up beside her and she gives him her number. Here you go. And meets up with him right away, and then all of a sudden bringing this little kid and stuff into the picture and stuff on a date. I mean, I don't know. That just
yeah.
so weird. The whole thing was just so
Well,
weird.
considering in the 3 days that she knew him, every time that they had been together, they had had sexual relations, and he had given her drugs.
Right. Right. Give her drugs right away. Oh, he's set. Oh, I thought he was going to be my number one. Remember, she put my husband in her phone
Mm-hmm.
thing, which
Mm-hmm.
was, oh my gosh, how stupid are you? I mean, you've only known him for 3 days, and you're already putting my husband in on it on your phone for him. and stuff, and he's going to promise her this, that, and the other. He's offering you drugs. Okay, but of course, in my experience and stuff that I in the past and stuff, birds of a feather flock together and stuff. People that you see that do drugs usually are with people that do drugs. People that don't do drugs don't usually hang out with people that do drugs because it just doesn't. It's not a good match.
Right.
Stuff. But she thought he was her Prince Charming and stuff. Oh, it's just so sad.
Sad. Very sad.
Sad stuff. But yeah, I think that she should have been. I don't know if she got some kind of special thing, deal, or what, but I really think that she should have gotten something for it. And, I don't know. I wish we knew exactly what happened, too. That's the thing there, that all these cases at the end, I'm left with, so what really happened?
Right, because most of the time you're getting half truths, you're not getting the full story. It's interesting to me too, all of the things that could make a difference in a jury verdict that are not allowed in the trial.
Right.
I mean, I have a perfect example about that in the next case we're going to talk about. It boggles my mind because to me, any factual information or expert testimony pertaining to a case that is certainly evidentiary, why they don't allow some of that into the trial really kind of disturbs me, because I think there are I know that they want to protect innocent people, but there are guilty people getting off scot-free because of this.
Right. Well, there's a lot of politics behind all that stuff.
Well, this was a really sad and tough case, but I'm glad we listened to it. I'm glad we followed it, and I really appreciate you coming on and talking to me about it.
Oh, thank you for having me. And it was an interesting case, that's for sure. It was very interesting. I'm glad that he got what he deserved. And
Me too.
I know he looked real sad sitting in the corner and stuff. And oh my gosh, I can't believe that they're going to find me guilty. Look at me.
Right.
I'm so innocent and stuff. Well, yeah, no.
Yeah, not really.
Yeah,
all right. Well, thank you very much for coming and talking to us. And thank you to everybody in the chat and the moderators. And if you liked the video, hit the thumbs up. If you didn't, hit the thumbs down. If you're not subscribed, subscribe. And if you know anybody who might be interested in this, listening to this, then please share it. And we will catch you next time. The next case we will be discussing is the Amber Geiger case. So thank you. Yep. Thank you very much. All right.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.